If your temples ache by noon, if you feel pressure behind your eyes, if your cheeks feel tight, if your jaw feels loaded for no obvious reason, then there's a good chance you've been blaming the wrong thing, because pain in the head and face is deceptive. What feels like sinus pressure may not be sinus pressure. What feels like a tooth problem may not be a tooth problem. What feels like a random headache may actually be part of a larger nerve and muscle pattern that's been building for hours. And one of the biggest reasons people miss this is your pain may not start where you feel it. It may start with jaw tension, might start with clenching while you work. It may start with stress that never quite leaves your body. It may start with a nerve system that's getting irritated, more reactive, and harder to calm. Today, I want to show you how the trigeminal nerve connects headaches, migraines, face pain, jaw tension, and clenching into one bigger story, because once you understand the pattern, the pain starts making a lot more sense. Welcome to the Clenching Chronicle. I'm Randy Clare. This show is about jaw clenching, teeth grinding, bruxism, jaw tension, headaches, and nervous system patterns that most people live with for years before they finally understand what's happening. And this episode matters because a lot of people are trying to solve head pain by staring only at the place where it hurts. They focus on the temples, on the forehead, on your cheeks. They focus on pressure behind your eye. They focus on the tooth. They focus on the jaw joint. But the body doesn't always organize pain in neat categories. Pain in the head and face is messy because the systems overlap. Nerves overlap, muscles overlap, the jaw, the neck, the temples, the eyes, the cheeks, the teeth, the forehead. These regions communicate. They influence each other. They can amplify each other. That means a person can walk around saying, geez, I get headaches. I carry stress in my jaw. My cheeks hurt all the time. My eyes feel pressure. My temples are always tight. I wake up sore. My dentist says my teeth show wear. I thought it was allergies. I thought it was screens. I thought it was just stress. And sometimes those are not separate complaints at all. Sometimes they are one connected pattern, and this is what we're unpacking today. Not so you can diagnose yourself from one podcast episode, but so you can stop reducing a complex pain pattern into one explanation that does not fit. Because once you shift from asking, where does it hurt, to asking, what keeps feeding it, everything changes. So let's start with the trigeminal nerve, probably a word you've never heard before. The trigeminal nerve is one of the major pathways involved in sensation in the face and function around the jaw. That matters because it helps explain why pain in this region can feel so widespread, so confusing, and so hard to pin down. Think of the trigeminal system like a communication hub. It has influence over the forehead, the cheeks, the jaw, the teeth, the temples, and parts of the head and face. So when this system gets irritated, the result is not always one neat symptom. You may not just get a headache. You may get pressure in the temples, a sore jaw, aching cheeks, pain around the eyes, facial tightness, tooth sensitivity that's not really about the tooth itself, a sense that your whole face is under load. That's one of the most important ideas in this episode. The pain pattern can spread beyond the starting point. And this is where people get confused, because most of us are very literal with pain. If the cheeks hurt, we assume that it's a cheek problem. If your eyes hurt, we assume a sinus problem. If your temples hurt, we assume a headache problem. If the jaw hurts, we assume a dental problem. But the head and face do not always work that way. Pain often travels, pain refers, and pain often amplifies through shared pathways. So the place you feel the pain is not always a place creating the most trouble. So let's go one step deeper. Headaches, migraines, and other headache patterns can interact with the trigeminal system in ways that increase the overall pain response. When the trigeminal system becomes irritated, it can become an amplifier. Nearby muscles can become more reactive. Protective tension can increase. The jaw can start contributing more. The temples can tighten more. The face can ache more. So, what begins as one type of head pain can become a broader problem. This is why some people do not just say, I get tension headaches. They say, my jaw gets tight. My temples start throbbing. My face feels kind of strange. My eyes feel pressured. My neck joints in. My whole head feels loaded. That's not random. That's what can happen when a shared nerve and muscle system stays irritated far too long. And let me make an important distinction here. Not every headache is caused by the jaw. Not every migraine is a clenching problem. Not every face pain issue is a trigeminal irritation. But a lot of people have overlapping patterns. That means they do not have to choose between, is this muscular? Is this neurological? Is this stress? Is this my jaw? Is it my neck? Sometimes the answer is, it's a mix. And when it's a mix, one-size-fits-all advice fails. That's why just relax fails. That's why just wear a mouth guard fails for some people. And that's why it's just stress often misses the mechanism. That's why it's probably sinus can delay the real answer. The better framework is system load. What's loading the system? What's irritating the system? What is amplifying the system? And what keeps the system from calming down? That's the real question. So let's make this practical. You sit down at your laptop in the morning, you start answering emails, you're concentrating, you're slightly behind, your teeth come together, your temples begin tightening. You don't notice any of it because your attention is on the screen. An hour later, your temples feel dull and heavy. By lunch, you've got tightness in the cheek area. By late afternoon, you say you've got a headache. But the headache did not just appear. It was built. Imagine you're driving. Traffic is slow. Your shoulders start to come up. Your breath is shallow. Your jaw is set. Your teeth are together. One side of your face feels tired by the time you get to where you're going. Later that evening, you rub your temples and wonder why you've got a headache. Or maybe it's not stress exactly. Maybe it's focus. A lot of people clench hardest when they're trying to perform. During work, during writing, during spreadsheets, during workouts, during intense concentration, during problem solving, and emotional restraint. The jaw becomes a brace. And if that brace stays on for hours, muscles do what overworked muscles do. They fatigue, they tighten, they get tender, they start referring pain. And then there's posture. Long hours at the laptop, looking down at the phone, leaning forward, neck overloaded with your head forward. Your upper shoulders are active. Your head keeps drifting forward. That can add more load to a system that's already too loaded. And then there's sleep. Some people wake up in the morning with headaches, facial tightness, temple soreness, or jaw fatigue. That is a different clue. That suggests the pattern may not be limited to what happens during the day. So when people say my headaches seem random, they're often not random. They're patterned. They're linked to behavior, linked to a time of day, linked to focus, linked to stress, linked to posture, linked to poor recovery, linked to clenching you may not even realize that you're doing. And that's why awareness matters so much, because you cannot interrupt a pattern that you don't notice. And many people are living inside these loops for years, realizing their jaw is part of the story. Here's where the conversation gets more nuanced. The word headache is too broad because some headaches are more muscular, some are more tension-driven, some are clearly migraine-related, some are more nerve-like, some are mixed, and some shift over time. A person can have a stress-related clenching pattern and tension headaches. A person can have cervical tension and face pain. A person can have jaw muscle overload and headache referral. A person can have more than one driver at the same time, and this is why generic advice often disappoints. If someone has a pain pattern that's strongly linked to jaw muscle overload, reducing clenching, reducing tension, improving your resting posture, and calming the system may help a lot. If someone has a more complex migraine pattern, they may need a broader neurological strategy in addition to jaw and muscle management. Someone has sharp, electric, unusual face pain, numbness, tingling, or changing systems that deserve a proper professional evaluation. So, this episode is not asking you to oversimplify. It's asking you to stop ignoring the pattern. If your pain keeps returning, if it worsens during concentration or intensifies with stress, builds up during long screen sessions, shows up with facial tightness, if it comes with jaw soreness or seems tied to morning tension, your jaw may be contributing more than you think. And that contribution matters, even if it's not the only cause. So this is where I want to bring in the Brooks method, because this is exactly the kind of problem it was designed to help people understand. So Brooks stands for B, build awareness, R, relax the response, U, understand the triggers, and X, exchange the pattern. So let's walk through that in the context of headaches, face pain, and trigeminal overload. First, we need to build awareness. This is the first step because clenching is not intentional. It's automatic. Happens while typing, reading, driving, lifting, planning, worrying, or simply trying to get through your day. You do not change an automatic jaw tension pattern through willpower alone. You change it by noticing it enough times that the brain starts to catch it sooner. That's why awareness is not passive. Awareness is treatment. So, R, relax the response. Once you notice a tension, you need a replacement. Not shame, not frustration, not why am I doing this again, not another layer of tension. You need a downshift. Soften the jaw. Unstick your teeth. Release the tongue. Drop your shoulders. Exhale. That's how you teach the nervous system that it does not need to brace every time demand shows up. You understand triggers. This is where the pattern gets personal. Your trigger may be stress, or focus, or driving, or conflict, or fatigue, or screen time, or poor sleep, or posture collapse, or deadlines. A lot of people think they clench because they're anxious, but many people clench because they're trying to perform, trying to hold themselves together, trying to push through, trying to stay sharp. Triggers are not always emotional in the obvious sense. They're often functional. X, exchange the pattern. This is the real work. Instead of clenching during concentration, you pair concentration with a jaw release. Instead of bracing in traffic, you pair red lights with a breathing reset. Instead of staying locked at the screen, you pair email sessions with body scans. Instead of knowingly touching your teeth all day, you train your resting jaw position. This is behavior change, not passive protection, and that distinction matters. Let's make this immediately useful. So here's a reset cue. Lips together, teeth apart. This is the foundational resting cue. Try it now, right now while you're listening to this. Your lips can be gently closed, but unless you're chewing or swallowing, your teeth do not need to touch. That tiny bit of separation matters because it unloads the jaw muscles. So throughout the day, just ask yourself, are my teeth touching right now? If they are, separate them. So here's a practice for you. Practice number 1. It's a 10-second jaw scan. Use this while you're at work. Just pause, unclench your teeth, let your tongue relax, drop your shoulders, and exhale slowly for 10 seconds. That's enough to interrupt a hidden tension build. So here's practice 2, and this is trigger mapping. For 1 week, keep a simple note in your phone. When did the pain show up? What were you doing right before it? Were you driving, typing, in a meeting, staring at a screen, waking up, under pressure? You're looking for pattern, not perfection. Practice number 3. The longer exhale reset. Try inhaling through your nose, then exhaling a little longer than the inhale. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to tell the body it can come down a notch. Then check your jaw again, because jaw tension often drops more easily when the rest of the system drops with it. Now, there's a very popular thing nowadays called habit stacking. So pair a jaw reset with something you already do multiple times a day. Every time you open your laptop, every time you stop at a red light, every time you send a text, every time you stand up from your desk. That is how behavior change becomes more automatic. And this is also where a biofeedback tool can help. For people with awake clenching, the challenge is not just knowing that clenching exists. The challenge is catching it in real time while it's happening. That's where Clench Alert comes in. Clench Alert is not a passive mouth guard concept. It's a biofeedback training tool. It helps bring hidden clenching pattern into your awareness so that you have a chance to stop, release, and retrain that behavior. That matters because the longer a clenching episode runs, the more load goes into the muscles, and the more opportunity there is for pain to build. Awareness breaks the loop. And when that awareness happens at a moment of clenching, not 2 hours later, when your temples hurt, the intervention becomes more useful. So if you take one idea from this episode, let it be this. Your pain may not start where you feel it. That's true for temple headaches. It's true for face pain. It's true for jaw soreness. It's true for pressure around your eyes. And it's true for a lot of the mystery pain people normalize for far too long. The jaw is not always a whole story, but it's often part of the story. And when it is, ignoring it keeps the cycle going. So just begin by noticing. Notice what your jaw does when you focus. Notice what it does when you're stressed. Notice what it does when you drive. Notice what it does when you're waking up. Notice when your teeth come together for no good reason. Notice whether your headache has a build pattern instead of a random pattern. Because clenching is rarely about weakness. It's rarely about lack of discipline. It is often a learned nervous system response. And learned patterns can change. Not overnight, not through force, but through awareness, interruption, repetition, and better nervous system support. That's the work. And that's where the relief begins. If this episode helped you connect some dots, subscribe to the Clenching Chronicle podcast and share it with someone who keeps getting headaches, jaw tightness, or face pain and still does not realize the pattern may be connected. And remember, Your pain may not start where you feel it.